You could say, hey, the buck stops with the driver. They should not have picked up the phone. Understood. Fine. But why is dispatch setting them up for failure by calling them while they're driving if they're not
Right.
supposed to pick up?
Hey everyone, welcome back to This Side Up, where we dig deep into the minds of founders, builders, and operators reshaping the future of logistics and supply chain. Today's guest is Eric Rodriguez, the CEO of VendorFlow, a communications platform that's purpose-built for the transportation industry. So with over a decade in venture-backed tech and experience, it's good to take a peek behind the curtain of what Eric's found to make successful teams, build successful products, and actually build things that move the needle. Today, what we're going to learn in this episode is how you avoid the adoption trap. So why driver-facing apps often fail, and really why any application fails, and that it fails to change behavior. A big part of that is getting people to adopt it. The other thing we'll talk about is meeting people where they are. How do you leverage existing tools, existing infrastructure to really think about delivering value in a different way? We'll also talk about how do you scale without reinventing the wheel through partnerships and through existing infrastructure. Let's dig in.
I've been in venture-backed tech for about 12 years or probably more by now. But the most recent experience that's relevant to the industry was I was at Next Trucking, as well as the vast majority of the VendorFlow team. We were ex-Next Trucking software developers and product managers there. And we made some observations there that led to VendorFlow, certainly. One of those things was we helped to build a TMS, as one often does, but also a mobile app for truck drivers to install. And these mobile apps sound wonderfully compelling because, one easy place to find your loads and share the proof of delivery, all these good things. Well, the adoption was poor. Maybe 20% of drivers would use these apps, especially when it came to communicating with dispatch, communicating with operations. We found they would find their own ways. SMS, WhatsApp, Telegram, Facebook Messenger, they were using to communicate with the operation. So that was the observation we made to say, hey, there's an opportunity here to provide communication software for fleets that reaches drivers where they are over SMS, over Samsara messages, without making them install or log into extra software.
Yeah, I think that's key. And for those listening, I met Eric maybe last June, I think, at a FreightWaves event in Atlanta, and
Yep.
for the first time. And obviously, just being in the industry, it's small, so we've chatted a few times. And I think the thing that's always really remarkable, and/or things that seem obvious at first are not obvious to everybody, like not needing an app, going through SMS, going through messages, and meeting people where they are. I guess I think a lot of founders struggle with this kind of like sunk cost fallacy, right? They built an app initially. How do you backtrack that and say, well, we're gonna deliver it in a different way? And then, like, how was that kind of rollout? Did you do that at Next, or was it when you became to VendorFlow that you were like, hey, at VendorFlow, we're starting with SMS only, and that's kind of going to be the beachhead of how we're going to serve end customers? Talk about that journey of adoption, because that's a big one that some founders don't recognize, and they fail to pivot. And then, that 20% onboarding kind of kills every pilot, every deal that they had is, well, we're not getting an adoption we need, and so we don't feel like this is a right fit. Like, talk through that from a mindset approach.
Yeah, I mean, our learnings come from past environments. I mean, not necessarily just Next Trucking, but we've certainly interacted in environments where leadership says, make them use this thing that they're not using and add more features to it. Then they'll start using it. And, the adoption goes from tiny to like tiny plus 1%. And it's still just forcing something that's not there. For VendorFlow, yes, for the driver experience, it's just SMS. Our philosophy is the driver shouldn't know that we exist. Because if they don't know we exist, then they don't need to be trained on anything, don't need to install anything, none of it. So really, the adoption, therefore, is on the operations side for dispatchers to use our software to communicate with drivers. Well, one way to make that easy is to make it be not fundamentally, profoundly different than what dispatch is used to. We don't need to reinvent everything. Dispatch is used to using Google Voice, RingCentral, Dialpad, these generic telephony solutions. So if we were able to at least have that baseline there, dispatch only needs a 30-minute training, and they're good. They're running. So that's our belief. We have not really had, not saying we haven't had problems as a business, but adoption has not been really one of the problems.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, and for that to not be a problem, right? Like, that's great, right? It's kind of like iterating on, the biggest point of pain, which is no one's using it. I mean, it's very hard as a fleet manager, communications manager, in dispatch to say, yeah, we're going to double down on VendorFlow. No one's using it yet, but they will in a couple of years. Like,
Sure.
it's hard to continue to investing in that path. So that's good. So I guess what has that kind of led you to of like, hey, we've solved activation of our customers by giving dispatch the tools they need, giving the drivers the tools that are really frictionless. Like, what do you think that has done to allow, VendorFlow to lock in some really great partnerships like Samsara and some other ones that really start to, build distribution for you guys?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a fundamental buttress to make sure that we have that adoption. When you have adoption, you have users, and those users have passionate feedback. And the passionate feedback was, hey, can you integrate with Samsara, with Motive, with Geotab? That's the feedback that we got. To be honest with you, when we started VendorFlow, if you said, hey, Eric, how do telematics systems integrate with communications? I would have given you a blank stare. And that's
Yeah.
my whole job. I only learned this through our customers. And they've identified ways to say, hey, if you tie in texting and calling and Samsara messages into the telematics and ELD, then it can provide safety benefits, compliance benefits, productivity benefits for the fleet in great detail, which I'm happy to get into when the time's right.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And obviously, like you spoke about something, we talked about pivoting one delivery mechanism, whether that was the initial idea or vendor flow, but also two, like, really taking to heart customer feedback and pressing into that. You have a background in product management, right? Which is really the key of a product manager is like, is the business problem we're solving also solving the user problem and vice versa? And what's the value there? Like, maybe talk a little bit about, I don't know how close you are to product development day to day, but talk a little bit about, how your teams are structured around acting fast on customer data and feedback. And like, how do you think about prioritizing a roadmap in this world where everything, we kind of talked a little bit before the show, like logistics for the most part is like a core business for all of your customers. Like that is what they do. So it's very, hair on fire problem. How do you structure your teams and your processes and your thoughts to act on that feedback and, move forward and make vendor flow better?
Yeah, well, thankfully, we're a pretty nimble bunch still, so we don't need anything terribly profound. But one element of our philosophy is, and my philosophy, is that engineering should be directly involved with the voice of the customer. So
Absolutely.
engineering is involved in onboarding. Engineering is involved in usually about 2 weeks after onboarding, we have that first, what we call office hours, where our customers can let us have it, whatever feedback they have, good, bad, and the ugly. We want to hear it. And the good news is, at least in 2025, people come with pretty thoughtful feedback. I've been a product manager for a long time, where I've heard a lot of silly things over the years, but lately
Yeah.
it's been like pretty, like very reasonable, very fair, very on point, and very doable. So usually we can turn these bits around for them based on the nature of their feedback. And what we love are passionate customers who have lots of ideas of, cool, you did that with Samsara. What if you could also do that? Oh, that's an interesting point. Just yesterday, just give people a quick example.
Yeah.
I got a new one. It's not rocket science, but hey, as a dispatcher, when I'm communicating with my driver, it would be nice to be able to pull in their truck ID and their chassis ID, so I would have a little more context on like what they're hauling, where they're going. It's like, oh yeah, true. That's actually pretty straightforward. We just
Yeah.
hadn't crossed our mind yet, so thank you. And that's some kind of thing we can add in a week or less. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been fantastic getting their kind of feedback. And we do go on site from time to time as well. We're in their neighborhood. We try to drop by, maybe bring some donuts or lunch or something. And it's been
Yeah.
a good practice as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. As you know, like the key to solving any problem well is like the context and the edges, right? Even like in the world of AI today, in the world of software and anything, is like the more you know, the more you can generate insights from if you know where to look, right? And so even changes as far as that, like I'm not super familiar with vendor flows like architecture and
Sure.
integrations and stuff, but a change like that where you're displaying their data, you likely already have an integration to the system that holds that data, right? So
Yep.
it's surfacing it up and figuring out how to iterate with that.
Yeah, I mean, and one design decision of our own was to say, we're not trying to redundantly be kind of a TMS or kind of a telematics system. No, we have a clear lane, it's communications. We occupy the space that a phone system does because we are a phone system.
Yeah.
But we regard the TMS and the telematics or ELD as the brains. We pull the context in from there rather than redundantly having duplicate data where they're updating the driver status here, but also it's something else in Samsara. No, we want to pull it from what our customer believe the source of truth is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's big. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about, your path you were at a couple VC backed companies, right? And not every great tech company is VC backed. Maybe it's more common these days when you think about, all of the big transportation companies that have venture arms and, they're
Yeah.
investing in offshoots and stuff like that. I guess how do you think that has impacted your team? Obviously, you mentioned a lot of the engineers come from have come from Next Trucking or other folks from your team kind of in that transition. Um, I guess talk more about the culture of how you think about building products in this world.
Yeah, I mean, the extent to which we're sort of VC backed has been somewhat influential. Well, fun fact, I mean, one of our early backers led to an intro to a wonderful guy named Chris Torrance at Optima Dynamics, shout out, who made an intro to our first big customer. So that's helpful.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, just being in this universe, it helps to kind of keep a nice pressure on to keep building quickly, delivering quickly for our customers. And yeah, I mean, what's nice is the whole VendorFlow team, we've been around the block at a handful of other startups, good, bad, and ugly. And I'd like to believe we'd learn a thing or two about what to do and what not to do from some of our past employees, for sure.
Yeah. I would imagine a lot of that is building the wrong thing is is pretty bad. Maybe talk about like, hey, top 3 lessons and things.
Sure.
Is that burning too hot? Is that building too many things at once? Like maybe
Right.
share some of those insights.
Yeah, I mean, no, for sure. One issue is in our early days, we were barking up the wrong tree from a target audience perspective.
Yeah.
We thought we knew our target audience. We sincerely believed we thought we did because we would book demos with often 3PLs and freight brokers, to be a little more specific. And we get a lot of pats on the head of, oh, you're onto something, looks good, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you're getting 10 pats on the head and 0 customers in a row,
Yeah.
then that's a good sign that something's off. And had we done our deeper homework, let's take proper responsibility, would have researched the fleet market a lot more. We had assumed, oh, surely the fleet market already has this problem solved. And no, they don't by a pretty hefty degree. So we found our fit in the fleet market by a little bit of luck and a little bit of hustle, I suppose. So we're
Yeah.
thankful for that.
Yeah. So obviously like serving the right customer is important.
Yeah,
Were there any learnings? Because obviously you've been doing VendorFlow now for I think 5 years, is it?
just about.
Um, just about 5 years. So like obviously serving the wrong customer is going to lead you to build some of the wrong things, right? Like,
Well,
um,
thankfully, we were building the right thing, just talking to the wrong audience. It turned out that it actually applied quite well to fleet, so there, a fair bit of luck there as well.
yeah, kind of a different zooming or volume model, right? Directly at fleets versus 3PLs and brokers that maybe just have the same problem but amplified, but need different at scale solutions that are probably, I'm imagining like how this is architected, like multi-permission layers between
Sure.
them and their end customers and all, their drivers and all that stuff. But yeah. So you mentioned the team is small and nimble by design, right? Which is great. I guess talk about, do you have a normal like EPD pair, like engineering product design? Like how do you guys typically think about approaching teams? And like
Um,
have you built VendorFlow from a team model? Is it traditional engineers, traditional product managers and strategists and
hmm.
traditional designers, or is in going lean and kind of really being more nimble, are you blending some of those roles together?
Sorry, I get you now. So yeah, I mean, um, there it's mostly engineering, but our CTO also plays a significant product management role as well, and
Yeah.
thus is also involved with voice of the customer, getting involved with the customer, onboarding, customer success, and not all of support, but a great deal of support as well, because it's not just about getting the support done, but understanding like where are these support issues coming from. Are there ways to nip these in the bud so they the customer doesn't have an issue at all to begin with, right?
Yeah.
So that's of course been an area of focus as well, but it's been fairly straightforward for us as a relatively small team.
Yeah. Just kind of like in the culture, right? In the DNA of the team is, which is kind of juxtapose that with, I had a call with not gonna drop any names here, but a large company that's
Sure.
that's in the space that also has a broker division that also has their own fleet and all,
Right.
and it's very hard to change that culture over time, right? If
Mm.
you don't start with it, it's very hard to go in and be like, now we're a tech company that cares about customers and it's everyone's job to deliver. That's
Yep.
different than pull a ticket from the backlog, right?
Sure.
Like
Sure.
have you ever had to face that? I mean, obviously, maybe not at Next, but in your career of like, hey, how do we change this culture of, I would say like a culture of caring about the end user and actually solving the problem fully. Have you faced that in your journey at all, or has it always kind of been ground up teams where that's just part of how you're building?
I mean, the biggest challenges I've seen at prior employers that don't need to be enumerated per se have been usually the story is they raised a lot of venture capital. In my opinion, a lot is like 50, 80, $100 million. In my book,
Yeah.
that's a lot. But
Yeah.
like frequently, then it's all about hyperscale. So they hire a ton of people and they have a ton of initiatives. Every VP seems to have their own special initiative that's totally different than everyone else's initiatives. And it's a mess. And then you have an organization going in 18 different directions. You have a CEO who says, our top priority is revenue, but also customer service, but also tech debt, but also, and it's like, well, okay, we don't have a top priority. You're just saying
Yeah.
all the things and hoping they all happen. That's super common when kind of doing that, for lack of a better word, deal with the devil of this massive venture round. So this is a large degree why we, VendorFlow, have wanted to stay lean. I think one of the best decisions we made was getting more focused on our target markets. Where before, I think we needed the validation of, oh, well, we could sell to this market and that market and that market. It's very reaffirming. Investors love it because the possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
But for now, maybe they are endless, big picture, long term. But for now, we need to focus. And oh boy, does that help to have credibility of, I got a story right now where we recently signed a 80 truck fleet in St. Louis. And guess what? Down the street, now we're talking to a different 80 truck fleet in St. Louis, and they know each other. So the owners are talking to each other for references, and the references went
Yeah.
well, and so on and so forth. Well, when you have a consistent market, you can have all kinds of little benefits of
Yeah.
the way the credibility develops, the type of feedback you're getting is going to be more tight. So, so much. Yeah, that would be my feedback to ostensible entrepreneur. You probably think you have your target market. Well, target it even further, I would say. Focus on the bullseye, and you'll be
Yeah.
in a good spot.
Yeah, I mean, even as you think about, if you were trying to serve fleets and 3PLs and brokers, like each one of them has a vastly different flavor where problems are similar, but you're not going to use the same language. You're not going to understand the exact nuances of running a 3PL versus having a fleet, right? There are those edge cases where
Sure.
that establishes credibility or
Yep.
changes the product in some way, or, you know what I mean? Those sorts of things that really multiply um, the go-to-market effort, right? In sales and marketing, it's like if you're speaking to all these messages and all these problems, someone looks at it and be like, "Well, I think they're more for brokers. I'm not sure." If you're
Sure.
only for fleets, right? You're like, "Yep, we got a fleet. Let's go."
Yep.
Um,
Yep. It goes a
and
long
there's
way.
use case pages and persona pages and all those things that you can do over time as you think about positioning and stuff. But when you're building from the ground up, I mean, clarity wins, right?
Yes.
That's great.
No, very well said. And yeah, that is a classic. And I was guilty of it in our early years of conflating freight brokerage and fleet. Not that they're the same thing, but having a perception that, oh, they're pretty similar. Not really. If you're building a product, you should probably choose.
Yeah.
I generalize, but you should probably just pick a lane.
Today's episode of This Side Up is brought to you by Intermode, a software consultancy. Doesn't it feel like everyone in logistics is trying to figure out how to design and build great software just to stay competitive? But how do you make it happen if you don't have the right talent on your current team? Well, that's where Intermode comes in. We're the folks who help both startups and industry giants bring their tech dreams to life within logistics and supply chain. We don't just give you a strategy to follow. We execute with you by designing beautiful interfaces, building scalable design systems, and bringing Silicon Valley level engineers to build it right the first time. Whether you're a new player with a bold idea or an established company looking to modernize your systems, we've got your back. We've actually worked with some names you might recognize: Ford, Procter & Gamble, Trimble, Breakthrough, US Venture, and more, helping them tackle their biggest tech challenges. Here's the thing, no matter how big or small your project is, we're all about turning your vision into reality. Want to see what we can do for your business? Just head over to intermode.is. Intermode, making ship happen.
So we talked a lot about like VendorFlow's ability to streamline all the communications. Like, what are all the different things you're streamlining from? Is it VoIP, SMS, is it email, is it shared inbox style? Like, for
Yeah.
those that aren't familiar, like paint a picture of maybe the dispatch world and what you all integrate with.
Right. So one technical term, and then I'll stop. UCaaS. I don't mind being put in a box because I like the box. The box is
Yeah.
UCaaS, Unified Communications as a Service. What's being unified? Voice, texting, and telematics messaging, like Samsara messages, modem messages, geotab messages. Now, what's the classic story when we talk to a fleet of a dispatch organization? What's so often the case is that they are not practicing shared and box communication. So what do they have going on? Different dispatchers have different phone lines, maybe their personal phones even, and one driver is texting this dispatcher who then goes on lunch. Driver texts again. Oh, no response. Now the driver texts this other dispatcher who says, I don't know what you guys have been talking about.
Yeah.
And a common situation as well is when they go from day shift to night shift on their separate phone line just shows up blind to like what's been going on. And it can be helpful to have a little context. So we're a big believer in this shared inbox model where the dispatchers will share a phone line. Usually it'll be tied to like a terminal, like Houston terminal will have a phone line, has its dispatchers, safety has access, no problem, operations has access, no problem. But from there, they do their communications with the driver. Fundamental, got to get that in place before you go any further. But once you have that in place, the more ambitious fleets will then start to wonder, how can I tie in my ELD and telematics? And if I can get into that for a moment. So classic examples, right? Safety, compliance, productivity. Let's do safety. Classic thing, you talk to a safety leader, you say, hey, is your operation texting with drivers? They'll say, how dare you suggest that they're texting with drivers? They probably are, though. But why are they uncomfortable with texting drivers? They have a good reason to be uncomfortable. They don't want to text a driver while they're driving. Reasonable, no problem at all. Well, if you tie in with Samsara or Geotab and Motive, you can set rules that say, as dispatch who's trying to send a message, have it wait until the truck is no longer driving and they go back to kind of on duty and parked, then deliver it. Maybe you're concerned about messaging drivers super late at night or when they're off duty when it's like not necessary. Maybe you want to set rules that say, you know what, this could wait till they're back on duty and not driving. And let's go a little further. Let's be more ambitious. It's not just about SMS, but let's say the tension between app messaging, like Samsara messaging and SMS is, app messaging is great because it'll adhere to the rules and it can be read out as an in-cab alert. Beautiful. The issue, though, is the adoption tends to be very poor on the driver's side in terms of getting a response. So what you want, and my hot take here, is that there is no one right way to communicate with a driver. It depends on the context. So in general, if I dare generalize, I would say if they're driving, you want that to, instead of being an SMS, it'll go out as a Samsara message or a modem message or a geotab message that can be read out as an in-cab alert, safest way you can go. But when they're stopped or parked, well, you want that as an SMS because then you'll actually get a response.
Now let me stop you real quick. Now, is VendorFlow controlling that kind of routing in between those? Is it recommending it? You're getting back the status of the vehicle, and then you're able to like determine, hey, we're going to send it as this, approve, yes, like.
Yeah, so our role is to tie in with the ELD telematics to understand hours of service. Are they driving? Are they not driving? Are they on duty, off duty? So that's all the context that we get. And then my job is to provide our fleet customers, their operations leaders, their safety leaders, with levers, rules that they can set to say, under these conditions, I want it to go like this. Under those conditions, I want it to go like that. If you spend a lot of time in the universe of Samsara, Motive, Geotab, and the rest, a lot of the product is these little levers about, if a truck is going more than 20 miles an hour, then blah, you tell me. But they got a million different settings. And our role is to be an extension give them a few more settings and levers as it pertains to communications. And that's just the safety one. There's more on compliance.
For sure. Yeah, that sounds, obviously I don't own a fleet, so I've not seen that product work firsthand, but I mean, it sounds exactly like what someone would want to make sure the message gets delivered, because you're most likely talking about rerouting something or a backhaul or, maybe it's a safety alert, but that would come from Samsara, things like that. So things that are pretty timely and that need to be seen the next moment they could be seen, so.
Right. And a funny story, if I may, I was at Samsara Beyond a couple weeks ago, and I got the same story from two different fleets where here's the drama. A dispatcher calls a driver while they're driving. The driver picks up the phone. The AI camera snitches on them for picking up the phone. Driver gets in trouble. Driver gets very mad, and of the two, one of them rage quit because they felt betrayed by this whole setup. Now, what's interesting is you could say, hey, the buck stops with the driver. They should not have picked up the phone. Understood. Fine. But why is dispatch setting them up for failure by calling them while they're driving if they're not supposed to pick up? So we VendorFlow can provide those limits as well to say, hey, dispatch, you when they try to dial, hey, dispatch, you realize they're driving right now, right? Like, and it's up to safety to say, should the call be absolutely blocked under all circumstances? Maybe, not my place to say. Yep. Or maybe it's more like a break glass in case of emergency. Dispatch is going to say, I know they're driving, but this is seriously super important. Maybe it is a superseding safety issue. You're driving into a dangerous area. I don't know. Perhaps there should be settings there to let them override it. But then safety can review. Oh, in January, we called them, 80 times while they were driving. And in February, now we're down to like 30 times while they were driving. Cool. I think a reasonable person would regard that as healthy risk mitigation. Maybe they can go from 30 to 25 in March, right? So this type of framework we wish to provide to fleets to reduce that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes absolute sense. Like, in our case, like building software, you have to make rules if it's not flexible, right? Like the great thing about what you're talking about is like, it's very personalizable. There's decisions that have to be made, but there's thresholds, there's limits, there's those levers that you can make those because it's different, right? If someone's hauling, let's say gravel to a dump site right now versus, hauling, reefer or something across the country, right? It just different scenarios, different contexts, and I would imagine different urgency. So that's really
it's remarkable. It's indeed. Not only is it not my place to say exactly what the right rules are, but you talk to different safety leaders. They'll frequently on the topic of communications. It's not a very, how do you say? It's not settled science. You know what I mean? Like it's not like there's this one best practice everyone adheres to. Nope, it varies wildly, fleet to fleet to fleet.
It's like 80% of the rules are like general, 20% are very specific.
Sure.
Yeah. So you talked a lot about like ELD and telematics and stuff like that. What have you learned? Obviously, like being outside of those ecosystems, like integrating well into them. What have you learned almost like an observer of how those systems can be best used? You mentioned a couple things. You mentioned safety. The other one you mentioned
compliance and productivity.
Productivity. Like maybe talk a little bit about productivity for the drivers, like productivity, and also are they happier, right? Because I mean, the guy that rage quit, he's not happy, right? He's out of job. Maybe he found another job, but you want to speak about those other two?
Yeah, I'll be brief on as it intersects with VendorFlow, but compliance, a classic would be either lunch breaks or hours of service violation to phase one, notify dispatch, hey, they're about to miss their lunch break or miss their hours. So it can inform dispatch better and maybe compel them to remind the driver to take their break. But if you have repeat offenders, maybe it would be, hey, for all drivers who missed their lunch break in the last 30 days, they get a reminder 15 minutes before lunch. The ones that don't miss their break, no need to nag people who are actually pretty good at taking their breaks. So that's a simple one on compliance. Productivity, and that'll be the last one for this, is geofencing is a classic. So shout out to our friends at Kestrel Insights, if that's okay. But we've been working with them on various geofencing related use cases. Hey, maybe you want it when a driver pierces a certain geofence, you need to give them a warning because they're in like a high risk zone. Maybe it's like fire or this or that. That's the concept. Another more traditionally would be they pierce a geofence and you want to text them, here's the available empty trailers or empty, if it's like a drop and hook, empty trailers, empty containers. Hey, it looks like you just arrived. Please don't leave without taking an empty. Because I've talked to fleets where they lose like a couple $100 every time a driver fails to or refuses to take an empty. So lots of fun little things we can tie in. Even the last one is, hey, welcome to the IKEA drop-off center. I don't know. It's your first time here. We know it's your first time here. So here's the details about it. There's a bathroom. Make sure all chassis are dropped there, not there. Whatever the policies are, boom, 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 boom. The driver is well prepared. And even though we know you have the shipment details on your deep in your app somewhere, let's surface it up in text. So it's like right there. All you got to do is boop, show it to the receiver and you're good to go. All kinds of fun things we can tie into in this world. And I encourage fleet owners, even if it's not about communications, to really look at the app marketplaces of these systems, because there's so much that you can do to level up your, I don't know, your email, your CRM, your QuickBooks, your all these things tie in wonderfully to these systems in ways we might not imagine until you learn about it. So
Yeah. I mean, unless you have that really, I guess, what would you call it? Like growth mindset, where you're always looking to improve what you're working on, or like, hey, this new app's out, that, right? You see that today with AI adoption, like some people just starting to learn about it versus like a year and a half, 2 years ago, when things were booming, can really level up your business in ways you just have no clue about until you do it. So you talked a lot about like communications, how you really, I think you have strong opinions about it, which is good, right? From a personalization, from a customization standpoint, is like the rules are just going to be variable. You can't, one size doesn't fit all. Are there other, is there an opinion you have about communications and logistics that you think most people don't share? Like a good point.
I mean, I think that goes back a bit to that there is no one right way to communicate with drivers or frontline labor. It's about reaching them by a variety of channels. So kind of covered that hot take. But that is the hot take on that topic.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely true. And I've not heard, I know many fleet owners, I've not heard of them, and maybe they're not involved, right? Maybe dispatch is handling it. Maybe they have no problems, which is hard to believe. But at the same time, absolutely. So as you think about, what's next for VendorFlow, obviously, like I don't know how much you guys are doing now with SMS 2.0 and RCS, and like, what does that unlock, or maybe the future of, connectivity and things like that? What does that unlock for where you guys are going?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple elements here. I do want to engage with the RCS topic. I mean, as it pertains to our roadmap, though, it's really going deeper into our integrations with Samsara, Motive, and Geotab around safety, compliance, productivity, as we covered. Also, deeper voice integration to tie. And when I say voice, I just mean phone call. Don't got to be too fancy about it. But phone call, VoIP integration for our VoIP offering, as well as perhaps other VoIP offerings as well, for those who really love RingCentral for voice but want to do VendorFlow for messaging, let's say. Now, you make an interesting point in invoking RCS, which, if I remember correctly, is Rich Communication Service. RCS is fancy language for SMS 2.0. And we're really excited about what's coming with that. For folks who have used like WhatsApp, it's that caliber of messaging. So some people are already getting on their personal phones, right? So things like read receipts. You can see if someone read the message, and a lot of fleet dispatchers want to know if their driver actually read the message, because otherwise the driver will say, "Oh, I never got the message," right? So it's a little thing, but it can be meaningful. And RCS also affords for voice recordings, to record your voice and send that back, which can be really nice when you're out in the field. You just want to get something quick back to dispatch or vice versa. So a lot of potential there as well. And maybe finally, buttons. So to be able to submit, we got a request just yesterday from a fleet where they like to send what they call micro surveys, little tiny surveys, yes or no, or confirm, really tight. For that, you could broadcast out your survey to your 100 truck drivers to say, hey, do you want, vanilla or chocolate, whatever it is. But the recipients can just go tap chocolate or tap vanilla, a button, not typing. And then you have structured data that you're capturing. And let's be clear, the recipient doesn't have to click a link to go to a web browser. No. It's right there in the chat. There's the button, tap it. So we think that's going to do wonders for low friction, capturing structured data, motivating all kinds of workflows. Maybe you just want the driver to confirm, the geofence. You know how it is with geofencing. It looks like they arrived, but are they in though? Not sure. Okay, tap this when you're good. That'll give dispatch some peace of mind, right? So many wonderful things one can do with those opportunities. So we're really excited about enabling that for our customers as well in time.
Yeah, I mean, it really levels up the workflow tools that, teams like ours, I don't know what you guys use internally for chat, if you're using VendorFlow. I wouldn't
Slack.
imagine.
I mean, internal is Slack. We're not
Slack, right? Where you get polls, you get, rich text, you get all the things of kind of the new world in tech, but you don't have that in the real world or in, so it'll be interesting to see how these systems evolve. Anything else that you want to share, Eric, just about VendorFlow and kind of what's next for you guys?
No, I appreciate that. I mean, no, I mean, I think we covered things pretty well. I mean, for fleets that are passionate about increasing their communications and tying it in with they're curious about how to tie it in with their telematics and ELD. We'd love to meet them and learn their needs and see how it can be helpful. But other than that, I think we covered pretty well. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. Where can people find more out about you and follow you and/or VendorFlow?
Yeah, most of our action is on LinkedIn. So I recommend people find VendorFlow on LinkedIn. It should just be us. And then our website is vendorflow.co to find us. And my email, if anyone wants to offer me AI services or whatever, is eric@vendorflow.co, eric@vendorflow.co.
Awesome. Well, this was great. I really appreciate you taking the time, Eric, and sharing more about it. It's been great to learn more about just the mindset, right? As I mentioned, like not a lot of freight tech teams. I think you're seeing more like coming out of the VC world that are really thinking about how do we structure teams around customers and problems versus the silos you get in a lot of antiquated teams. So it's good to hear that and also just see the progress since we've met even of VendorFlow over the last year and a half or so. So I really appreciate you taking the time. Thanks again.
Thanks for joining us on This Side Up. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help others find us. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out. And if you want to be a guest, let's connect. Until next time, keep your shipments safe, your logistics smooth, and your curiosity on the move.